Hello there guys, in this video we are going to unbox an Apple Pencil. Now, I decided to buy this because, well, I quite like the Apple Pencil. I like handling it. It's quite a nice little thing. And you know, I need a better pen for my Note 8 because, well, you know, the Note 8 pen kind of sucks. I mean, look at that dinky little thing. I mean, come on, can you really write with that? I can't write with that. So, packaging kind of comes out very nicely like this. Have your thing with all the little fun stuff in here. They also give you... Oh, pen's gone. Well done. They give you a little adapter to charge it off of a traditional lightning cable. And you get an extra nib that I unfortunately had to use because I dropped my pen and it screwed up the nib, so I had to burn one of my replacements, which really has me chuffed, but whatever. I mean, at least the nibs aren't too expensive to replace. So, yeah, I bought this for my Note 8. Let's go ahead and have a look at how it works. No, this ain't gonna work. We need something better. There we go. That's how we do it. So yes, as you just saw, I have indeed acquired an iPad. In this case, the commodity iPad, or the iPad 6th generation. I do like to just call it the commodity iPad because, well, Apple just calls it the iPad. Though I guess that this year they're calling it the iPad 6th generation. Last year they just called it the new iPad. That's all they did. And with it, yeah, I have an Apple Pencil. And I never intended to buy this with my Note 8. I just decided to attempt a joke there. But, pretty much, the iPad. Why did I buy one? When I swore off iPads before? And it kind of goes back a bit. I had an iPad Mini 4 up until end of last year. It was a decent little tablet on iOS 10. iOS 11 absolutely fucking destroyed it, though. The reasoning behind that was because the iPad Mini 4 is essentially an iPhone 6 with 2 gigs of RAM. So, when you think about it, that's an old CPU. That's before Apple decided to move to NVMe storage, which NVMe... So, traditional flash to NVMe is kind of like when you went from a hard drive to an SSD. The jump in speed is ridiculously good. So, you will notice if you try to use an iPad Mini 4 alongside, say, an iPhone 6s, you go to install an app, and the app is going to install like a million times faster on the 6s. So, the iPad Mini 4 already kind of had it bad because due to the lack of NVMe storage, it wasn't going to age very well to begin with. So, ultimately that led to me ditching it for an Asus ZenPad Z8s. The Z8s was kind of meant to be a budget tablet that's still better than the iPad Mini 4 in UI responsiveness, and I kind of had a hankering for Android on my tablet. Problem being is Android on tablets is pretty much dead at this point. It's something I didn't want to admit at first, but it's kind of become the truth that we have to accept. Samsung is still carrying on, and I mean, I do appreciate that they are. Samsung is in the best position, I feel, to carry on the Android tablet legacy because they actually add useful tablet features to their tablets. Asus just kind of just put Android on a tablet and just shipped it. Nothing really tablet worthy on there. I mean, you got multi-window, stuff like that, but really, I mean, Android even has that on phones now. It's not really a tablet-centric feature anymore. So, pretty much, the ZenPad kind of got to the point where I wasn't using it anymore. I was having to really struggle to use it, to make myself use it. On top of that, the USB-C port didn't work with any of my OTG adapters, because I've actually got one right here on my USB AM meter. This is my Pixel, or from a Pixel thing, and it does work with my Note 8, so that's all that matters to me. What the hell? Oh. So pretty much that kind of killed my enjoyment of the tablet. It did still make an excellent tablet for use in the car, but I had to use Bluetooth to play audio off of it because USB audio doesn't work with Android, obviously, because Android kind of half-assed the implementation. So really, why not just use the phone I already have paired to the system, right? So that's ultimately why I gave up on it. I was having to force myself to use it, and when I did, it was really not a good experience. The capacitive soft keys didn't light up, so if you were in the dark or, you know, didn't have ideal light, you'd be going around trying to find them and failing miserably. I actually had to put tape on it to remind me, hey, here's where the buttons are, because they're kind of placed in an unorthodox location. But that said, I mean, for the money I kind of paid for it, it was a good tablet. But that's pretty much it. I was paying monthly for it and not actually using it. So I started devising a plan, and when Apple announced the 2018 iPads, I thought about it, and I was like, you know, those actually look pretty decent, and I think I'll try and get one. And get one, I most definitely did. I arranged a deal with Ryan, because he ended up... So I got an XPS 2015, or a 13-inch XPS from 2015. It's a 9343, and I bought it off of a VM Media Group, and I think I did an unboxing. I can't, you know, I'm sitting at the computer right now, I can actually look, but I'll continue on anyway. The point is, I bought it off of VM Media Group. Yep, I have a video up on it. That's actually my last video. For basically a little over the price of that I got for selling my S8. And as a part of that deal, I basically said, if you can just pay off the tablet that I, you know, the Asus, I'll just call it even. And he basically got it for $200 around then, there. So that's how it ended up happening. I actually ended up selling a couple of other things, a ZenPad and a Pixel, to get the money to do this sooner rather than later. Excuse me. Yawns always happen at the worst possible time. But I essentially sold, because I had a Pixel, a 128 gig Pixel. I haven't done a video on it, and I'm not going to do a video on it. It's actually in the mail now, off to its new destination. But what happened is I actually got out of Ryan's car the other day. It went tumbling out of my lap, or not out of my lap, but out of my hands. Hit the side of Ryan's car and shattered. Well, it didn't shatter the screen. It basically put a few cracks in it. And it just was kind of... that would bother me, so I made a deal with a friend of mine, said, if you want to give me this amount of money, like, right now for me to get the iPad, it's yours. And he did. So that's off to its new home. And I got the iPad. And shockingly, for how much better this thing is, experience-wise, it's only $10 more per month, and, you know, I'm happy with that. And weirdly enough, this iPad actually supports every band, and the way I say weirdly is because we look back at the ZenPad Z8S that I had, and it doesn't support Verizon 3G at all. It only supports Verizon LTE. It supports 3G if you're on T-Mobile or AT&T, but if you're on Verizon, LTE is all you get. Which is annoying because there is still a lot of Verizon 3G around here, and the reason I have this line through Verizon is I want coverage. I want to be able to hotspot when T-Mobile over here is just being stupid. So if I don't have good 3G coverage, or if I don't have 3G at all, then it's really not, the use case here is limited. Anyway, the Apple Pencil. Why did I buy one of these with it? Because I had the opportunity, thanks again to Ryan, because, I mean, without his Verizon account, without him lending me a line on his Verizon account, none of this would have been possible. I had the opportunity to get this because with Verizon you can bill, say, accessories onto the account and you just pay them on next month's bill. So what this allowed me to do is effectively split the pencil into 2 payments of $50, which I can afford a lot easier than, $100 at once. So that's why I got the pencil, because I've actually wanted one. I played with one in the store, and I kind of want to pick up writing and drawing with my hands, because I mostly do typing for everything. And I kind of want to learn how to draw a little bit. It's something I've been kind of vaguely interested in for quite some time. So, rambling aside, let's talk about the iPad itself. And I'm going to bring it forward because I'm pretty sure there's stuff on screen. Yeah, there is. Oh yeah, 3D touch is not a thing on these things. But, so, this is the iPad, and I mean, I don't know what, okay, so right off the hop here, I don't know what Apple's aversion to putting a second-gen Touch ID sensor in an iPad is. I don't know what it is. As far as I know, none of them have it. They only have the first gen. I could be wrong. The iPad Pro could have it. I'm again, not certain. But every iPad that I've used has had the first gen sensor. And at first, I mean, when the 5S and 6 came out, you didn't notice, but then when the 6S came out and you saw how fast it could be, then it starts feeling slow. The iPad is nice and fast because essentially what you have in here is an iPhone 7. You have the A10 Fusion. Hello. That would be who bought the Pixel. You have the A10 Fusion. You have 2 gigs of RAM. And I don't want to know what bad decision he made. But it's faster because, again, you've got that NVMe storage. I think the Commodity iPad from last year did too, because that was essentially a 6S in a tablet form factor. But yeah, I mean, it's an iPhone 7, and the iPhone 7 still, to this day, holds up very well. In fact, common thread of, I have to go somewhere with the phrase, but I totally just screwed it up. But a common thing I see is if you're buying an iPhone 8, if you have an iPhone 7, I commonly see people say it's not worth it. They perform very identically. And I can confirm that actually coming from an iPhone 7 into an iPhone 8 before, going to my Note. So, this thing performs really well. I have no stutter bringing up Control Center, which that was a big problem with the Mini 4. The stutter would be so bad going in and out of Control Center, or bringing down, doing anything animation intensive. It would be a pain. And I'm happy to report that's not the case with this iPad. It's fluid, it's fast, and I don't know how much of that is iOS 11.3 being much better, but it's much faster, and I love it. The only knock I have against this iPad is quite literally a knock, is the display. Now, I've heard people kind of say the Mini 4 is superior because of the laminated display. Now, I long thought, the laminated display is overrated in the face of poor system performance. The Mini 4 may have a better display, but I would trade the laminated display for better performance here. And in a way, I'm okay with this, but in another way, I can see where the laminated display fanatics are coming from. Because when you touch this, it feels like plastic. It's glass, I can tell you that much, but it feels like plastic. there's an air gap in the display, and you can definitely feel it when you're touching the display, as it feels like the display has a little bit of give to it. And it feels kind of cheap. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, it's a cheap iPad, so I can't really knock it, but it feels cheap in like a bad way. And when you use the Apple Pencil, it gets worse because the nib here is hard. That's hard plastic. The nib on the Note 8, and this is something I really wish Apple would do. I have the hard plastic nib on my Note 8, but Samsung gives you, with your Note 8, when you buy a Note phone, this goes as far back as the Note 2, because I bought the Note 2 new. You could change the nib for one that's softer or harder. So if you want something that has a little bit of drag to it, you can put that on here. If you want something that's hard as a rock like this is, you got that too. Apple only gives you one style of nib, and that's the hard one. You get two nibs in here, one on the pen, one extra. And both of them are the same thing. It's not like they gave you two nibs, one feels different, the other doesn't. These both are just hard nibs, and they screw on. You just unscrew them, and boom, there's your pen core right there, and your nib. And that just will thread on like that. And boom, you're done. And of course you got your, cap. But that's the only thing I don't like, is the display has that hollow feel to it. Compare and contrast. That feels solid. And I know, again, it's a cheap iPad. It's meant to be cheap. It's built down to a cost. I know. I don't know. I'm divided because there's also another advantage, because there's an air gap in here. The only thing holding the glass to the display is the adhesive on these borders. So not theoretically, you can swap just the glass. So if you break this, as long as the display is intact, like the LCD, it's a cheap repair. So, I mean, it's a double-edged sword. It feels cheap, but it's also easier to repair. So, but if you're doing anything past the display, then it becomes a bit harder to repair, because then you have to remove the glass and the display, whereas with the laminated display, everything comes out as one unit. So, it really is a giant game of the double-edged sword here. This case was actually just a $10 case I got off Amazon, and that was my fault. Because I was trying to glue my magnetic mount to the back of this, or magnetic plate, because I do the same thing I did with the ZenPad, in that I use it as a car computer, like for navigation and such, and it does that great. Actually, the 10-inch display is a much better fit in my car. But yeah, I mean, from the first couple of days I've had it, my impressions are I really do like this iPad a lot better than I liked the Mini 4. The Mini 4 really kind of soured me on iPads because, again, iOS 11 utterly killed it. Even though iOS 11 really, in Apple's heart of hearts, they're trying to do right by the iPad by giving it more capabilities, iOS 11 just did not fare well on older hardware, full stop. And the Mini 4 was one of them, and I know the iPad Pro was another one that kind of got hit by that too. So things are getting better, and I hope iOS 12 is not a shit show like 11 was. But so far so good. I mean, I'm all right with this. I quite like the iPad. The Apple Pencil, I have not really given its, put it through its paces yet, but so far, I mean, I like the whole package, and it's pretty nice. So, hopefully you enjoyed this video. This kind of turned into an unintentional review. I was kind of just going to give it a quick overview. But, yeah, if you're looking for a cheap iPad, I mean, it's hard to go wrong with one of these. Better deal than any of the iPad minis, that's for sure. So, yeah. Hopefully you enjoyed the video, and I will see you guys around.